Raspberry Island in Kodiak is an enchanting haven where the pristine wilderness meets the rugged coastline of Alaska. Its rocky shorelines, emerald forests, and stunning views provide the perfect place for outdoor enthusiasts and nature lovers alike. But in the heart of its dense, untamed wilderness also roams an embodiment of nature's raw power, the Kodiak bear. One Gene Mo can bear witness to this as once upon a time a Kodiak bear, driven by hunger and territorial dominance, roared a challenge which he was forced to accept, armed with nothing but his unwavering determination and a will to survive. What had begun like that of any ordinary hunting adventurer turned into a bear hug like nothing we could ever envision. Be sure to leave us a like, smash that subscribe button, and turn on notifications for more phenomenal content. The date was November 1st, 1999, and Gene Mo, a 69-year-old marksman, was set to go for yet another hunting escapade. For over 50 years, he had frequented the mountainous Raspberry Island for a hunting adventure, and that chilly Monday was one of those days. Accompanying him for the exhilarating experience in the Alaskan backcountry were his son Carl and colleagues Tom and Steve. As the hunters stealthily weaved through the dense underbrush, their hearts pounded with an exhilarating mixture of anticipation and adrenaline. In their mind's eye, they couldn't help but envision the ethereal scene of their hunting escapade that was just about to unfold before them. Gene, in particular, couldn't wait to get back to the camp and fry up the liver. Each equipped with a knife, a rifle, and the usual hunting gear, the crew arrived at a promising hunting ground at around 4 o'clock. There, they drafted a plan which ensured that they covered more ground and got their results within a shorter time and lesser effort. Gene paired with Steve and Tom paired with Carl. The duos then split in different directions. Steve was to go up the ridge and skillfully guide a herd of deer towards Gene's direction, where he would shoot the fattest he could spot. But just as they were about to part ways, Steve lowered the ear flaps of his cap, which got Gene a little worried. He was concerned that the ear flaps would hinder Steve's hearing. It was important for him to listen out for any gunshot sound or their signature hooting sound. Steve, however, assured him that he would hear every bit of sound, and the ear flaps were nothing to worry about. While Steve made his way up the ridge, Gene began scouting for a place to hide. As he scanned his surrounding, he came across a tree whose bark had been deeply gouged down on one side. Being in a bear country, this was a clear sign that he was in bear territory and needed to stay away from as far and as fast as possible. Hours went by, and Gene was getting more frustrated that he was yet to shoot a deer. They needed to do so before dusk, but the more time passed, the more he lost hope of catching a deer, and then suddenly he spotted 2 deer. Stealthily, he began stalking them, waiting to get a clear shot at one of them. He got so engrossed in the pair that he didn't realize that he had circled back to the bear's territory. Moving any closer would startle the deer and ruin his only good chance of going home with some juicy deer meat, and so he decided to hide behind a pile of leaves. He took his rifle and set it strategically on a log. It was now time to wait for a clear shot at the black-tailed deer. And his moment came. He took a deep breath, and without further hesitation, he pulled the trigger. Luckily, the bullet found its mark and the deer dropped dead to the ground. As part of their hunting routine, Gene waited a few more minutes for Steve to join him so that they could start skinning the deer. Skinning the deer would help them transport the deer easily. But it was a risky venture, as the smell of blood could easily attract all manner of predators. It was therefore important that one hunter kept watch while the other skinned the deer. Feeling impatient that dusk was catching up with them, Gene abandoned his hideout and went to the fallen deer. The gunshot was without a doubt loud enough, and he was sure that within no time, Steve would join him. He, therefore, drew out his knife and began skinning the deer. As soon as he split open the deer's skin, the smell of fresh meat and blood wafted into the air, and within moments it had found its way into the sensitive nostrils of a hungry mother bear. A bear's sense of smell is 2,100 times better than that of a human and can smell up to 20 miles. A fact that Gene had underestimated. It was during the fall season, and the berry bushes had stopped producing the bear's favorite fruits. The previous winter had also brought with it 12 feet deep snow that had led to the loss of a third of the deer population. As if that wasn't enough, a couple of weeks prior, an Asian ship cruising through the Pacific Ocean had made away with a large amount of salmon after casting a 20-mile fishing net. This meant that bears had very few food options. Later on, while recounting the events of that day, Jean admitted to having seen 3 deer and 10 bears in the previous days, confirming that there was a serious shortage of bear food. It was, therefore, no surprise that this mother bear wasn't going to waste a chance at getting an easy dinner for herself and her cubs. Jean, who was bent down carefully skinning and deboning the deer, was completely oblivious that a hungry bear was closing in on him. Decades of hunting deer had seen Jean acquire impeccable skinning skills, and within minutes, he had managed to skin the whole deer and place it on the plastic. The last bit was to cut out the heart and liver, but that was just going to take him a millisecond. There was still a little daylight, so he was sure he was going to make it down the mountain without any trouble, or so he thought. Suddenly, he heard a deafening roar that sent shivers down his spine. Instinctively, he held on tight to his knife and turned to face the source. He was now standing face to face with a raging, hungry bear. The bear was growling with its mouth wide open, and its claws were drawn, making it clear that she was ready to fight for the juicy deer carcass. Jean quickly glanced at his hiding spot. The only thing that could possibly save him from the angry, hungry bear was his rifle, but it was 5 feet away, and the bear was never going to give him the chance to grab it. He was therefore left with no choice but to face the bear head on. He had made peace with it and was determined that he was not going to go down without a fight. He thrust his knife forward, hoping to deliver a life-threatening stab in the bear's mouth, but the knife only grazed the bear's skull. Sadly, the missed attempt saw his hand caught between the merciless jaws of the bear. He could feel its razor-sharp teeth sink deeper into his flesh as they tore off a huge chunk of his arm. Any attempt to pull free his arm proved futile, and he knew he had to think of a different tactic. Using his free left arm, he reached for the bear's head, hoping to get his hand on its eyes. He was sure that jabbing his fingers in the bear's eyes would cause it to let go. When locating the eyes proved difficult, he stuck his fingers in the bear's ear as far as possible. He then twisted them as hard as he could, and the result was so unsettling that the bear let go of his hand. Jean then tried to tackle the bear, but things did not go as he had imagined. Instead, the bear threw him 8 feet away. For several decades, Jean had watched bears dig up roots, pick berries, and fish, and over that period he had come to learn that most bears were right-handed. And so as he crawled towards his rifle, his eyes did not leave the bear's right paw. It was highly likely that the bear would use his right paw to attack him. A bear is capable of decapacitating a cow in one strike, and Jean knew that the slightest contact with that right paw could easily finish him off. And just as he had suspected, the bear swung her right paw at him. Thankfully, he had seen it coming and managed to jerk on time. Although the bear had technically missed, its claw slit Jean's ear and almost tore off his earlobe. Furious that she had missed, the bear got on fours and began punching his legs and back. What followed next was a mix of growls and moans as Jean bravely took the punches. The bear then lunged at him, but Jean was not willing to bear the impact. Instead, he put his feet together, and using a little boost from his mountain boots, he kicked the bear, causing it to fall to the ground. Jean quickly got up, but so did the bear. Despite his clothes being torn to ribbons and his flesh hanging down his finger, Jean still had a little strength and determination left in him. The bear was not done with him, and so it sized him and then attacked him again. Still holding on to his knife, Jean aimed at the bear's neck and stabbed it 4 times. Bear skins are generally thick, and so, unfortunately, the 4 stabs had not caused any considerable damage. Jean was, however, relentless, and much to his delight, the 5th stab caused a deep cut in the bear's neck, causing its blood to gush out violently. Agitated by the pain it was now feeling, the bear continued attacking him. Jean made several prayers, hoping for miracles from above. Desperate to live, he folded his fist and punched the bear so hard that his hand turned white and broke a couple of phalanges. The result was, however, satisfying. The bear fell to the ground, let out a deep growl, and lay there motionless. Jean was, however, not convinced that the fight was over, and so, with his heart pounding out of both fear and exhaustion, he reached for his rifle. After many struggles trying to get to his rifle, He didn't expect that he'd have a hard time pulling the trigger. His hand had become numb, and even releasing the knife was almost impossible. Thankfully, he eventually managed to shoot the bear, not once, but twice. Although he had emerged victorious over the bear, the pain in his body would not let him celebrate. He also needed to get down to the beach and regroup with his hunting party before nightfall. In all his hunting escapades, getting down the mountain was the easiest task, but on that particular day, it was the hardest thing he had to do. 3 times, he dropped to the ground, ready to die, but each time, he prayed and found the strength and determination to move on. The rifle, which was necessary for his safety, also felt like a heavy load on his tired body, and so he had to abandon it mid-descent. In what he would later term a miracle, he finally made it to the beach, where his hunting buddies were waiting for him in a boat. At the very first glance at him, his crew knew that they needed to act and act fast. They immediately placed him on the skiff and whisked him to the nearest cabin. While there, the owners of the cabin dressed his wounds and let them borrow their radio phone. Their distress call reached the Coast Guard, who sent a helicopter to Gene's rescue. At the hospital, Gene underwent a 7HR surgery involving 500 stitches and 2 skin grafts. Fortunately, after a month of rehab, he was well on his way to a full recovery. As a haunting reminder of the events of that fateful day, Gene took the bear's skin and hung it on his wall. That concludes our video on the mind-blowing bear attack on Gene Moore. Do you think you are brave enough to stand up to a bear like he did? Let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and turn off your notification bells for more of these videos.